Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mindmakers podcast. This is podcast 13.0. This is Aadit Kapadia coming to you from Houston. Together with me are Sunanda Vashisht and Pramod Kumar Buravalli. How are you guys today?
Good, thank you.
How are you, Aadit?
Pretty good. Anyways, hope you guys been listening to our previous podcast and have been reading the fantastic articles that have been coming on our website. This week was a big week for Mindmakers. We had some variety of topics ranging from military affairs, strategic affairs, to social issues, to politics, to a discussion on nuclear power. So do check out the pieces.
And a fantastic piece on
strategic affairs.
Strategic affairs, and why that deal was a
Right,
must. Yes.
absolutely. So, please do check that out. From starting this podcast, and we'll be exploring this in the next coming podcasts as well. What we're going to try is we want to hear what you guys want to say, your comments, your feedback, and any questions that you have for us. So we put out a tweet from our accounts and the Mindmakers accounts about asking any questions for the topic of the podcast. The topic of the podcast is obviously, as you saw, is going to be about the Kashmiri Pandits. Rehabilitation, and what can we do, basically, giving a brief history of what happened in Kashmir in the 90s, to what can the current government do, or what can the current political dispensation do in Jammu and Kashmir as well. So we got tremendous response on the questions. Sadly, we won't be able to take all the questions, but we've shortlisted some of them, and in part 2 we'll be discussing about those questions and answering those questions. Part 1 is going to be a discussion on Kashmir and what the problem was and so forth. So I'll give the floor over to Sunanda if you want to give a brief 30-second history of what the problem was.
Yes. Well, as everyone knows, that in 1990, what happened in Kashmir was, it started in 1989 and 1990, armed insurgency, with the help of Pakistan, raised its ugly head in Kashmir, which led to the only exodus of a community that modern India has seen. And that was exodus of about 7 lakh Kashmiri Pandits from their homes overnight. And this exodus began on January 19th, 1990. And overnight, 7 lakh Kashmiri Pandits, most of them on January 19th, and subsequently through the months later in the year 1990, all Pandits left their homes and hearth and everything, and literally with the shirt on their backs, escaped and fled. Because Kashmir had become a purgatory where, there was no space for minorities. Kashmiri Pandits were looked as agents of Indian government, and they were called, what is in Urdu called the word mukbir, or people, mukbir, spies.
Yes.
Spies. And they had to leave. There is a lot of literature about it. I have written about it, and but this is what happened. Now, in 2015, with BJP-led NDA government, there are talks about Kashmiri Pandits going back. And this is always a very contentious subject, because Pandits this is 7th exodus of Pandits. Pandits have seen persecution since the advent of Islam in Kashmir. They have seen themselves being reduced to 2% of the population. Very minuscule, tiny minority. So there is huge trust deficit when somebody who has been sent out 7 times from their home and suddenly they're told to go back again, they're very worried.
But I'm curious
rightly
about,
so.
I'm curious about this, Sunanda. You said 2 to 3% of the
population.
What do they have to fear so much that they?
What do Kashmir Muslims have to fear so much? Well, they want to make it. First, they wanted to have an Azad Kashmir, which didn't happen.
Absolutely. It was more like a rhetorical question on this.
I'll tell you what you have to fear. Why were 3% Kashmiri Pandits could have existed there, and they could have still had this thing. But what was the way of telling Indian government or defeating Indian government or doing by killing Hindus there? That was a way to attack Indian government. We became Kashmiri Pandits. I'm a Kashmiri Pandit myself. I was there on that fateful night of January 19th, 1990. So I have been there. So this was a way to attack the government of India. Kashmiri Pandits was a way, attacking them was a way to attack government of India or tell them that, that is why that 2 or 3%.
Right. So it was almost
attacked.
like they were targeting them, symptomatic, thinking that, oh, we are targeting the government of India
Yes,
kind of deal.
yes.
And I mean, see, for me, someone who is, I was born in 1989, so I was one when all these tragedies happened, and I have read about that, and sadly, in a lot of textbooks or so, it finds cursory mention.
It doesn't find any mention.
No, I mean, we did thankfully I had teachers who told me about it, and that's what prompted me to go and research. But I'm telling as a young Indian, because
very few people know what happened in Kashmir.
Say people who voted for the first time in this election or second time in this election, who 25 to 30.
So let me give a little perspective here, why everyone does not know about it.
No, but I'm coming to that. No, the reason I was saying was, if you want to say contemporary, this issue has been burning for the last 25 years, without a solution inside. That is
and
why
more than that.
Right.
The current situation is 25
that is
years
why what
old,
happened
but other than Kashmir,
in
has
the
been
talks
since
and all.
1947, Kashmir has been a burning
Absolutely, but I'm talking since the Exodus. That's why the current talks that happen assume more significance. I think probably we saw the first concerted attempt to at least and try to solve the issue.
Absolutely.
And this
is where I would like to give credit where it belongs to Prime Minister Modi. As a candidate on the campaign trail, he had promised, he campaigned in Jammu and Kashmir. He campaigned in Jammu. He went to Kashmir. He met Kashmiri Pandit delegation as a student, as a candidate, and he had promised that he will see to it that there is some resolution to this problem. After all, these 7.5 lakh Pandits, they need to go back home. They are pining. Their exodus cannot be permanent.
Absolutely, and
so he had said that. So as Prime Minister now, he is trying to do what he can do. A blueprint has been suggested. We don't know what that blueprint is. That is not all we know from the newspapers and from news reports that Home Minister Rajnath Singh met the current Chief Minister Mufti Muhammad Saeed, and said that a land should be set aside for those Kashmiri Pandits who want to go back. And this is all that has happened.
Right.
And that was enough to spill blood on the streets of Kashmir all over again.
Good Lord. Yeah, I mean, the state erupted. I mean, I wouldn't say the state erupted or something, but at least the separatists came out against this thing. I mean, they were
very violent protests.
Surprise, but Pramod, what do you think? I mean, you've been almost in Manmohan Singh mode.
Because the brutality of what the Kashmiri Pandits have faced in independent India is unparalleled, and that is the reason why I was silent, because when you contemplate on rehabilitating a group of people, whether it is people displaced or people who have migrated, there is the biggest stumbling block is economic rehabilitation, because Kashmir, for whatever it is worth, is a state that has received a lot of subsidy for its population.
It's the most subsidized state in the Union of India.
Which is devoid of any industry in the valley. It has not grown to such an extent where you can have a skilled person, Kashmiri Pandit, who settled somewhere in Mumbai, to come back and get an equivalent job back in the Kashmir Valley. He or she has moved back from a traditional, probably some vocation he or she was in, to come back and do a specific job that is available, that can be provided by the government or even by private enterprise. It's a very difficult question.
Not just
B, just to finish on this thing, on the psychological aspect is, although there will be, for the foreseeable future, I would say, no less than about 1 million troops and paramilitary forces protecting these 7 lakh people, assuming all of these 7 lakh people decide to move en masse. Usually in our larger economy, you have to see that progress happens once a population starts becoming much more affluent. They start owning up businesses, and all of that is a big stagnation point, which comes back to the Article 370, which comes back to all of these hindrances that have created the state of affairs as of today. But will that hindrance also affect the Kashmiri Pandits who will be rehabilitated. This is the biggest experiment. The last failed experiment was the rehabilitation, so-called by the United Nations, of the Bosnian Muslims against the Serbs. The Milosevic episode where the Serbians are now at the receiving end because of United Nations intervention. Will the Indians be able to intervene effectively? That is the question.
No, not just that. Just to put things in perspective, there is also the factor of social rehabilitation, right? Now, Sunanda has told us many times, and she'll probably tell a couple of real life incidents in part 2 as well, that there have been cases where the neighbors have turned against their neighbors, right? To go back in the same localities and have those harrowing memories come back, it is, next to impossible. So, when we talk about economic, that's a legitimate concern. But can you look at your neighbors the same way? Can you look at your locality the same way?
It's a multi-pronged problem,
right?
And it has to be dealt that
yeah,
way.
and so we're going to let's explore this part in detail as well. That how, given the situation as is, given it's so fluid, how is the government going to do, given that the BJP is in power in center as well as in Jammu and Kashmir? So what is the political solution of this problem? So when we talk about the political problems of Kashmir, or political problems of dealing with the issue that is in Kashmir, what would be your major first thing?
First of all, there has to be political will amongst the parties in Jammu and Kashmir to bring back Pandits. The problem is they do double speak, whether it is PDP or National Conference. They engage in double speak. They say one thing in Delhi and then they go and say another thing in Kashmir. This is what Farooq Abdullah did. This is what Omar Abdullah did, and this is exactly what Mufti Muhammad Saeed is doing right now. That is why this whole thing became such a mess in a matter of 2 or 3 days. Even though no talks had happened, nothing had happened. There was just preliminary, consultation between the center and the state. Yet Mufti Muhammad Saeed, with Rajnath Singh in Delhi, gave a statement apparently that yes, a land will be set aside for Hindus who need to go back. He went back to the Legislative Council in Kashmir and said no Israeli-like settlement will be allowed. Now, when you use the word Israeli settlement, what are you implying? You are implying it's a very backhanded way of saying that Kashmiri Pandits are Israeli settlers and likening Kashmir to Gaza Strip or Palestine, which is, what do? You instigate the people, local people there, that this is what India is doing to Kashmir. Now, Kashmiri Pandits are no settlers. This is the place they belong to. And why is this need for land to be set aside for them? For the simple reason that most people like me, suppose I wanted to go back to my house. In 1990, my ancestral property, most of us had these ancestral properties there. We don't have any papers for them or anything, how traditionally people didn't have. So most people had they had an ancestral property, and then in the newer part of Srinagar, they had built a new home or something, as happens everywhere in India, nothing new. For those houses where they were living in old Kashmir, most people don't have the houses, but those houses have either been burnt, or they have been illegally occupied, or there have been distress sales. Overnight, when people were running away, they were fleeing, they needed money. So they sold a property of 5 lakhs, probably for 50,000 or something like that. So there is no option for people to come back. So if I want to go back, my house, as what I know, is illegally occupied right now. So am I going to go and fight a legal case with the person there?
No,
or my other house which was built in the newer part of Kashmir, has been burned down. So where do I go? And there are 99% people of such cases. That is why it is important for the government to set aside land.
And you actually wrote a piece, interestingly, warning about this, called The Audacity of the Mufti Modi Accord. And when we talked about the elections in Jammu and Kashmir, me and Pramod, we alluded to this as well, that Mufti Muhammad Saeed, the BJP, the alliance that BJP had with PDP did come with these risks. That Mufti was known for these double speaks before, where he would speak one thing.
That's true for every value politician.
No. I know, but I'm saying Mufti is the chief minister. Yeah. So if he goes and does a double speak, it is inherently more significant.
Omar Abdullah is right now hypocrisy personified, because under his rule there was a Sheikhpura settlement done, where few of these Kashmiri Pandits, when Manmohan Singh had given a plan of economic rehabilitation, we'll give jobs to them, and that was one plan.
But with
that was
Omar
done.
Abdullah, he takes 3 positions. One in Delhi, one in Srinagar, and one in NDTV studios.
And one in London.
Well, that is consistent with more or less with the NDTV studios position. But we were,
So he helped set that up, and now he is talking about, there can be no separate settlements, there can be no this thing. So under Manmohan Singh government, they did try to do this economic rehabilitation. They gave jobs to these people, but nobody returned. Nobody returned, though that Sheikhpura and this thing, they actually became a ghetto. So my point is, please don't call these ghettos, because when these people, Kashmiri Pandits, they want to have a contiguous piece of land to live together so that they feel a sense of security.
But the flip side to that argument is, and I'm playing devil's advocate, I think I sympathize with what Sunanda is saying as well. The flip side is, are you, like, when you put them in one, are you, having every Pandit living in that one person, uniting everyone who's opposed to Pandit, saying, okay, they are right here and making vulnerable to attacks and all that.
Security problem.
That's what I was saying. Because,
yes.
Everybody is in within 1-2 square miles or something. And I know where you're coming from, and frankly, I understand the problems that the Pandits face and why they would want to live in such a settlement.
I would say,
but security implications.
Propose a land here where most people will be Kashmiri Pandits and few of other people can come in too. There are Sikhs in Kashmir and there are Muslims.
Because the process of assimilation,
they can also come. Because I will tell you what used to happen before 1990. There were these, I hate to use the word clusters, but there were these mohallas. There were Pandit mohallas and there were, Kashmiri Muslim mohallas. Right. Mohallas were together. But then there were different, so let that happen.
Yeah, but again, rehabilitation cannot be like everything, like, if people come here, what it was before 1990 can start.
No,
it's not going to be the
separatist position when it comes to Kashmiri Pandits, the separatists and the mainstream parties in, the line blurs between them. You can't say what the separatists are saying and what mainstream parties are saying. They are saying go back to your original houses. The point is, as I just said, where do we go back? We don't have houses anymore. So where do we go back? Government has to provide a land.
One should genuinely ask the separatists, do they so the people who are illegally approaching, should we throw them out of the houses using what should we do?
That's a double speak. They don't want you to come back. In one way, they will talk about Israeli settlements, they will talk about Palestine and Gaza Strip, and then there's you come and live there.
And before I come to Pramod, there is nothing like Israeli-Palestine thing, because as the 1994 resolution of the Constitution of the Parliament says, Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. Yeah. And
and another thing, India never occupied Kashmir.
But they do say some idiotic, I don't know, I can't even call them names. They call themselves residents of Indian occupied Kashmir. I don't know if a media channel by mistakenly said that as well.
India has not occupied Kashmir. Kashmir is part of India and always will be, culturally, emotionally, every which way. So we're not even debating.
So Pramod, how would you like to weigh in on the political debate?
I think there is a need for the BJP to continue sailing with the Mufti government, just because the audacity, like you mentioned, is to get people to know them as governors. They have to. They've been perennially in opposition. People need to know whether they are able to provide alternate styles of governance, which is accommodative of Kashmiri Pandits and Muslims as well. So there is one political template that has the experimentation has started. On the other side, even if these colonies or other avenues don't open up sooner or later, the hope that I am seeing in the Kashmiri Pandit community that something will happen, that itself builds confidence.
Yes,
that gives
that hope
kind
has come after a long time.
So, which brings us to these excellent questions that people have asked on us. Yeah. And the first question was by Nilesh Singh. And this was related to what he called about hope. That knowing that the situation in Kashmir, how can a Kashmiri Pandit return back without fearing the backlash? Isn't it harsh on them to take the blow again? And what could be the most assuring thing for them?
It's very difficult. There is a huge trust deficit. As I said, there is a history here. Kashmiri Pandits have been persecuted for the longest time, not just last 25 years.
You've made that point, but
So-
I think coming to the most critical point of the question was, what could be the most assuring thing?
I think most assuring position right now could be offering this contiguous piece of land to them and coming back. And in the larger perspective, we have to have a debate about 370.
Pramod was to assure people
No,
more.
and
Yeah.
Kashmiri Pandits also need to understand one thing very clearly. Times have changed. Hindus go and settle in the Middle East in areas which are much more hostile to your faith, your practicing religion. Here you are talking about 1 million Indian troops protecting you for a long time. It's not 25 years ago when the administration was weak. Now we have got a very strong prime minister, an extremely strong president, a super strong military that will be there to back you up. Even if unfortunately something were to happen, the retaliation from the Indian side will be massive. So we are talking the confidence building measures in the form of the support mechanisms are immense. If you can go and settle and do business in Yemen, you can do that in Kashmir.
I have said before, and I have written about this, that the Kashmiri Pandits have to make a leap of faith. Somewhere there has to be a leap of faith, and probably this is the right time to do that.
Yeah, so and then I think the next question was from Abhishek Keshav. Sunanda, if you want to read out the question.
Abhishek, thank you, Abhishek, for asking us this question. He had a question about what is the separate township better, or should Kashmiri Pandits be returning to their original homes? And I have already answered that question. That separate townships.
But is there a mechanism for them to approach the state government to see what cases and is there even a database of all illegally occupied? Nothing.
No,
there
because
is no
as she was
illegal-
saying that a lot of them did not have papers because they were ancestral properties.
Ancestral properties, we don't have papers. Right now, this has been the biggest bane of Kashmir problem, because there has been so many people, the biggest exodus, almost a genocide of Kashmiri Pandits, but no commission has been put there. Nobody there is, and that is what in fact, I had written a piece and I had requested Modi government to say that we need to set up a commission or something for this.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Krishna Swami, and he would like to know how many would be willing to be settled or resettled, and what kind of monetary settlement is a possibility. Is there some package or anything that is in place?
Kashmiri Pandits have made it very clear right from the beginning. The day they moved out, they said this is not an economic problem. This is a very well-educated community. They can find jobs for themselves. They can find means of livelihood. They do not want, this is not an economic problem. They did not move because of any economic distress. So they are clear about it, that they do not want any economic help. What they want is that they want security, and they want to know that this is their last exodus. That is the thing. And how many are willing to go back? It's difficult to say, but from my talks, and I move around in Kashmiri Pandit circles quite a bit, every single family wants to go back, wants to take their parents back. Even if they have jobs outside of the Kashmir, they want to have a house there. They want to have a possibility of coming back and going.
The economic potential is so immense. You just have one single story house and rent it out, rent the second story house at a bed and breakfast. I'll guarantee you the first year itself, about 10 to 15,000 people per month will start going and using that bed and breakfast.
And it's not
so as simple as
the government just cannot take this bunch of people and tell them to go and
No,
live
as I
there.
said, the assimilation or the rehabilitation cannot just happen. It has to be a gradual process.
Yeah, exactly.
And it starts with a little bit of leap of faith, trust in the government, and with that realization that Kashmir of 2015 is nowhere close to Kashmir of 1990 in terms of it can, like, a strong central government, a strong military can provide you with more secure apparatus to ensure the stay there.
Yes,
So,
and at some point, the government and the state government, they also have to provide the means of livelihood and the jobs, which is not just for Pandits. Even Kashmiri Muslims are going everywhere outside of Kashmir for jobs.
And how Kashmiri Pandits should be rehabilitated, there are multiple theories on that. So, and Sunanda wrote a great piece on that. that. There is also a group which advocates for a theory of a Panun Kashmir.
Yes,
Sunanda, for
Panun
our
Kashmir,
listeners,
yes.
if you want to explain what that
Panun
is.
Kashmir is an organization that was formed after 1990, and their position is that it is impossible for us to coexist now. That train has gone, that bus has left. So what we need is a separate homeland. Finally, after all the years of persecution, we deserve a separate homeland which will be given a union territory status and which will be under the direct control of union government and which will be under the constitution of India. Because the problem with Kashmir is that even they have their own separate constitution and all those problems. 370, Article 370. So Panun Kashmir's position is that if you're not going to erode Article 370, if you're not going to do this, it's impossible for us to stay there. So give us a separate, reorganize the state. There are three parts of the state anyway. Reorganize the state and give us a union territory in Kashmir. That is their position.
No, and absolutely, there are pluses to every position. There are a lot of negatives to every position as well. So you can have a, whatever your perspective on this debate, but one thing is for sure, it continues to be a very volatile debate. There is the population that is going to come back is skeptical.
Kashmiri Pandits have the right to go back. They should make an effort, at least have a home there.
On that hopeful note, hoping for a quick and a timely solution and amicable solution amongst all. This is us signing off for this podcast. Once again, you can like our page on Facebook. Please follow us on Twitter at MYINDMAKERS. You can follow us on our personal accounts at ASK0704, at SUNANDAVASHISHT, and at PBURAVALLI. Please keep your questions and your comments coming. We'll have another set of fascinating articles this week and a great interview that is coming up as well. We look forward to your feedback and comments. Do keep tuning in. This is Aadit Kapadia signing off from Houston. Thank you.